I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen bee.
The document was prepared, the appointment was ready, and King Charles believed the matter would be settled with a single signature. But before the pen could touch the page, Prince William stepped forward and stopped the process cold. At the center of the confrontation stood Camilla's son, a proposed position inside the royal household, and one explosive objection: no family vote had been held. In that instant, a private favor became a constitutional-style royal crisis. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles summoned a restricted circle to Clarence House, convinced the meeting would confirm a decision settled. The royal household, the network of staff and advisors managing the monarch's official and private duties, depended on trusted hands. He believed Tom Parker Bowles could provide that trust. The trustee role would carry influence over charitable oversight, estate discussions, confidential planning, and the machinery protecting the crown when ceremonies ended. William entered with the household governance rules beneath his arm. He had expected consultation. Instead, he found an appointment letter awaiting approval, and Camilla seated at the far end of the table, watching him. The prince felt more than surprise. He felt cornered. As the future king, he would inherit every precedent created there, including the dangerous idea that personal confidence could replace collective consent. Charles noticed the change in his son's face and asked whether he believed the king could not choose the people closest to him. William answered carefully, but the restraint made his words sharper. This was not about affection, he said. It was about authority. A royal household trustee, meaning someone permitted to oversee internal responsibilities, could not be installed through a private promise when no formal family or trustee vote had taken place. The monarch reached for the pen. William moved first. He placed 2 fingers across the lower edge of the document and stopped the signature before it began. Charles froze. Camilla did not speak, but her silence carried anger, fear, and disbelief. Her son's future inside the palace had been discussed as secure. Now William was treating that promise as a threat to the institution he would one day lead. Then the prince revealed another danger. The missing vote was not an oversight. Someone had altered the appointment timetable and removed a consultation meeting from the official schedule. Charles lowered the pen, uncertain who had protected him and who had manipulated him. What began with William stopping a signature would soon expose why Charles wanted the appointment so badly and why Camilla believed her son's future inside the palace had already been promised. This was never only about a trustee position. For Charles, the appointment represented loyalty to the woman who had stood beside him through decades of humiliation and scrutiny. For William, it represented a boundary that could not be crossed without consequences. And for Camilla, it carried something even more personal: proof that her son would no longer remain outside the royal circle. 3 people entered the dispute carrying different wounds. Only one decision could prevail. Charles remained alone after the meeting ended, staring at the unsigned appointment as though it had become an accusation. He removed his glasses and read the same lines again. The royal household, the group of staff and trusted officials who managed the monarch's private and official affairs, needed stability during illness, transition, or sudden crisis. The king believed Tom Parker Bowles could provide it. He saw discretion, loyalty, and someone who understood the pressure surrounding royal life without needing every danger explained. William saw something else. He saw a position that could open the door to confidential estate discussions, charitable decisions, and plans affecting the future shape of the monarchy. The prince did not believe Tom was dishonest. He feared the precedent. Once personal trust became enough to secure private royal authority, future courtiers could demand the same privilege, and the future king would inherit a household where family favor had slowly replaced restraint. Camilla entered the adjoining room before William could leave. She closed the door and asked why her children were always treated as though their presence carried suspicion. Her voice remained controlled, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. She had watched Tom remain close enough to face royal judgment, yet distant enough to receive none of its protection. Now Charles had offered him a place of trust, and William had stopped it before her son could even defend himself. William chose his words carefully. He told the queen consort that affection could not replace procedure. Tom as a private man was not the problem. Tom as a palace power holder was different. The appointment would place him inside confidential machinery that belonged to the crown, not to one branch of the family. Camilla heard the distinction, but it did not soften the rejection. Then she disclosed the truth through their private conversation. Charles had spoken to Tom weeks earlier. The king had described the responsibilities, the expected discretion, and the role he might soon perform. The appointment had not merely been considered. Her son had already been encouraged to believe it was his. William turned toward the door, but Camilla stopped him with one final warning. The idea had not begun with her. It had begun after a disturbing incident at a royal estate convinced Charles that the existing trustees could no longer be trusted. To understand why the king was willing to risk a confrontation with his heir, the story had to return to the private estate meeting that transformed a quiet concern into an irreversible plan. Weeks before William stopped the signature, a smaller confrontation had unfolded far from public view. There were no cameras, no cheering crowds, and no ceremonial uniforms. Only a private dinner, a disputed estate file, and a warning Charles could not forget. By the time the evening ended, the king had lost confidence in one of the people responsible for protecting his household affairs. That was the night Tom Parker Bowles's name first moved from family conversation to royal consideration. Charles had expected the Sandringham dinner to close an exhausting estate review, not expose a breach of trust. Sandringham was the monarch's privately owned country estate, separate from property held officially by the crown, and its agreements carried both financial and symbolic weight. A senior household trustee and official trusted to oversee sensitive property, charitable, and administrative responsibilities admitted that an unauthorized change had been made to a charitable property agreement. Worse, the change had not been brought to the king's attention immediately. The trustee insisted the delay was administrative. No money had disappeared, no property had been lost, and the amendment could still be corrected. But Charles heard something far more dangerous beneath that defense. Someone inside his household had decided what he needed to know, and when he deserved to know it. The monarch pushed his plate away untouched and asked why the agreement had already circulated before anyone informed him. Silence followed. Nobody accepted responsibility. Camilla watched his frustration turn into something colder. The queen consort understood that the damage was not limited to one document. Charles depended upon these officials during illness, travel, and moments when royal business moved faster than personal control. If he could not trust them to report a small unauthorized change, he could not trust them with decisions that might shape his legacy. Later, she told him he needed at least one person whose loyalty was personal, unquestioned, and untouched by palace rivalries. Charles remembered an earlier family gathering at the estate. Tom Parker Bowles had warned him during a private conversation that large institutions often hid mistakes behind procedure until no single person could be blamed. At the time, the king had dismissed the remark as cynical. Now Tom's warning felt disturbingly precise, and his name returned with new force. Camilla joined her husband later that night when no aides remained. The monarch mentioned her son's judgment and discretion. She never directly requested a position for Tom, but neither did she challenge the possibility. Her silence gave the idea room to grow. Before midnight, Charles added a handwritten instruction to the trustee review file: consider TPB trusted, external, immediate. The note mattered because no vacancy had yet been formally announced. William would later discover that timing and the discovery would harden his suspicion that the process had been shaped around a chosen candidate from the beginning. The Sandringham incident explained the king's urgency, but it did not justify bypassing the vote, and when father and son met again, neither intended to retreat. Weeks before William stopped the signature, a smaller confrontation had unfolded far from public view. There were no cameras, no cheering crowds, and no ceremonial uniforms. Only a private dinner, a disputed estate file, and a warning Charles could not forget. By the time the evening ended, the king had lost confidence in one of the people responsible for protecting his household affairs. That was the night Tom Parker Bowles's name first moved from family conversation to royal consideration. Charles had expected the Sandringham dinner to close an exhausting estate review, not expose a breach of trust. Sandringham was the monarch's privately owned country estate, separate from property held officially by the crown, and its agreements carried both financial and symbolic weight. A senior household trustee, an official trusted to oversee sensitive property, charitable, and administrative responsibilities, admitted that an unauthorized change had been made to a charitable property agreement. Worse, the change had not been brought to the king's attention immediately. The trustee insisted the delay was administrative. No money had disappeared, no property had been lost, and the amendment could still be corrected. But Charles heard something far more dangerous beneath that defense. Someone inside his household had decided what he needed to know, and when he deserved to know it. The monarch pushed his plate away untouched and asked why the agreement had already circulated before anyone informed him. Silence followed. Nobody accepted responsibility. Camilla watched his frustration turn into something colder. The queen consort understood that the damage was not limited to one document. Charles depended upon these officials during illness, travel, and moments when royal business moved faster than personal control. If he could not trust them to report a small unauthorized change, he could not trust them with decisions that might shape his legacy. Later, she told him he needed at least one person whose loyalty was personal, unquestioned, and untouched by palace rivalries. Charles remembered an earlier family gathering at the estate. Tom Parker Bowles had warned him during a private conversation that large institutions often hid mistakes behind procedure until no single person could be blamed. At the time, the king had dismissed the remark as cynical. Now Tom's warning felt disturbingly precise, and his name returned with new force. Camilla joined her husband later that night when no aides remained. The monarch mentioned her son's judgment and discretion. She never directly requested a position for Tom, but neither did she challenge the possibility. Her silence gave the idea room to grow. Before midnight, Charles added a handwritten instruction to the trustee review file. Consider TPB trusted, external, immediate. The note mattered because no vacancy had yet been formally announced. William would later discover that timing and the discovery would harden his suspicion that the process had been shaped around a chosen candidate from the beginning. The Sandringham incident explained the king's urgency, but it did not justify bypassing the vote, and when father and son met again, neither intended to retreat. When William returned to face his father, the careful language of palace procedure disappeared. The door was closed. The aides were dismissed. On the table between them lay the unsigned appointment and the future of Charles's authority. The king demanded that his son remove his objection. William refused. Then Charles reached for the pen a second time, forcing the prince to say the words, "No heir ever wishes to direct at a monarch. You will not sign this today." Charles had ordered the second meeting because he believed surprise, not conviction, had driven his son's resistance. He expected a private command to restore obedience and allow the appointment to proceed. William arrived prepared. He placed the household governance papers beside the unsigned letter and opened the page requiring consultation and a recorded vote. A household council, the small group responsible for reviewing sensitive internal decisions, could not simply be ignored because the king trusted the candidate. William kept his voice controlled as he explained why the rule mattered. A trustee could enter discussions involving estates, charities, private planning, and decisions that might outlast the current reign. Granting that access without scrutiny would create a precedent others could later exploit. Charles heard the argument, but he also heard defiance. The future king was not advising him. He was drawing a line around royal authority. Charles accused his son of hiding personal hostility behind technical language. He said William was using procedure to humiliate Camilla and ensure that her family remained permanently outside the palace's trusted circle. The prince answered that the queen consort's pain could not decide who entered protected royal discussions. Affection mattered inside a family. It could not become the qualification for power. Charles stepped closer and asked the question he had held back for years. Had William ever truly accepted Camilla? The prince paused, knowing any answer could tear open wounds neither man had buried. He finally said he had accepted her place beside his father, but acceptance within the family did not create entitlement within the institution. The king's face hardened. The distinction sounded measured, yet it struck like rejection. Charles reached for the pen. William closed the folder, pulled it toward himself, and refused to release it. The monarch rose in fury, demanding that his heir remember whom he was addressing. The prince remained standing. He warned that if the appointment were signed without a vote, he would challenge it formally before the household council. That action would create a documented dispute attached permanently to the king's decision. Charles slowly released the pen, but surrender never entered his voice. He told William that if a vote was what he wanted, then a vote would expose everyone. Every senior royal would have to choose between the sovereign and the heir waiting to succeed him. The signature had been stopped, but the conflict was now moving beyond father and son toward the small circle whose votes could either protect William's boundary or destroy it. A royal vote sounds orderly. In reality, This one threatened to become an act of betrayal. Every person consulted would be required to choose between Charles's right to shape his own household and William's demand that the crown remain protected from personal favor. Behind closed doors, calls were made, documents were circulated, and old loyalties resurfaced. Yet the most important decision did not belong to a lawyer or courtier. It belonged to a royal who understood both men and feared what victory might cost. Princess Anne received the papers at Gatcombe Park and read them alone. The proposed ballot would involve senior household trustees and selected working royals, whose duties touched estates, charitable governance, and long-term planning. A working royal was a family member who carried out official duties on behalf of the crown. Their votes would decide whether Tom Parker Bowles could enter the position legitimately or whether the appointment would collapse under its own secrecy. Anne understood why Charles wanted someone he trusted, but she also understood William's warning. The king presented the vote as a judgment on Tom's ability. The prince presented it as a judgment on whether royal power still accepted limits. One side spoke of loyalty, the other spoke of restraint. To support Charles might strengthen the monarch while weakening the rules. To support William might protect the institution while making the sovereign appear powerless before his heir. Camilla called before Anne had finished reading. The queen consort asked her not to punish Tom simply because he was her son. Her voice carried anger, but beneath it lay a mother's fear that her child was again being treated as an intruder. Anne answered without cruelty. She said the danger was not Tom's identity. The danger was asking relatives to ignore procedure because a candidate was personally loved. Anne returned to the appointment papers and found language Charles had not emphasized. The new trustee would be permitted to attend private estate discussions and household succession planning, the internal preparation that protects royal duties during a change of reign. Tom was not being offered a ceremonial seat. He was being offered access to decisions that could shape William's future household before the prince became king. Then Anne uncovered something worse. A documented note showed that an existing trustee had been encouraged to resign earlier than planned, creating the vacancy Tom was expected to fill. The opening had not simply appeared, someone had helped create it. Anne closed the file and refused to cast her vote. First, she wanted to hear directly from Tom through a private conversation, without Charles or Camilla answering for him. That decision placed the queen consort's son in an impossible position. He would have to defend an appointment he had never been told was contested. The royal family could debate rules and precedents, but the first true consequence would fall upon the man at the center of the vacancy when Tom learned that William had personally blocked him. Tom Parker Bowles had not expected a coronation, a title, or a place in the line of succession, but he had been led to believe that a trusted position beside the household was within reach. Then the telephone rang. The appointment was frozen. William had objected, and the role Charles had quietly described as a service to the crown had become evidence in a family power struggle. For Tom, the news did not feel procedural. It felt deeply personal. Camilla delivered the news herself. She asked her son to come to Clarence House, where the unsigned appointment remained locked inside Charles's private study. The residence mattered because it was more than the king's London home. It was also where intimate royal decisions could be discussed away from the wider palace machine. Tom arrived expecting a final administrative detail. Instead, he found his mother struggling to explain why the future he had been promised had suddenly become uncertain. Tom had believed the remaining process was ceremonial. Charles had already spoken to him about confidentiality, independent judgment, and the responsibilities of a household trustee, someone trusted to help oversee sensitive property, charitable, and internal matters. The king's language had created a clear expectation that the role would become official. Now Camilla told him that William had demanded a formal vote and questioned how far the appointment had advanced without consultation. Tom felt humiliation before anger. He asked whether the prince believed he was untrustworthy or simply unacceptable because of who his mother was. Camilla answered too quickly, insisting that William claimed the dispute concerned procedure rather than character. Her son heard the distinction, but it offered little comfort. His name was already being discussed, as though he had attempted to seize power he had never requested publicly. Charles entered before the silence could settle. The monarch apologized for allowing Tom to believe the matter was complete. His voice softened as he explained that he had wanted a dependable person near the household during illness, transition, or instability. Tom answered that good intentions could not erase the embarrassment. The king had invited him to prepare for service, while the royal family had not even agreed he should be considered. Tom then disclosed through that private conversation that he had already begun reviewing his outside commitments. He had delayed projects, examined possible conflicts, and quietly rearranged future obligations. Those preparations proved how far Charles had allowed the plan to move before the required consultation began. Then Tom did what neither parent expected. He offered to withdraw. Camilla reacted sharply. She warned that retreat would make William appear correct and turn her son's withdrawal into an admission that the appointment had been improper. Tom refused to decide while his mother defended him or Charles apologized for him. He wanted to speak directly with the prince alone, without parents, lawyers, or courtiers shaping either man's words. The appointment had divided the palace, but the turning point would not come from another document or formal vote. It would come when the two men placed on opposite sides finally met, without anyone between them. William expected anger when Tom entered the room. He expected accusations, resentment, perhaps even a demand for an apology. Instead, Camilla's son closed the door, declined the offered chair, and asked a single question. Was this about me, or was I simply the point where you decided to stop your father? With no monarch present and no mother to defend, the two men were forced to confront the difference between personal rejection and institutional responsibility. William had chosen a private sitting room at Kensington Palace and ordered that no aides attend. The appointment papers remained outside, removing every symbol of rank and procedure from the conversation. Kensington Palace was both a royal residence and a working base for members of the family. But inside that room, it offered something rarer, a place where two men could speak without Charles, Camilla, or palace officials controlling what came next. William answered without hiding behind protocol. His concern had begun before Tom Parker Bowles became the proposed candidate. The prince had watched appointments move forward, through shortened consultations, informal promises, and decisions presented as settled before senior relatives could examine them. Tom's nomination had become the point where he could no longer remain silent. If he accepted the process now, the future king would inherit every dangerous precedent it created. Tom listened, but the explanation did not erase the wound. He told William that being connected to Camilla meant entering every royal room beneath suspicion. People assumed he wanted influence before he spoke, and judged him for access he had never requested. The trustee role had appealed to him, partly because Charles's confidence felt like acceptance. For once, the king had not treated him as an uncomfortable extension of the queen consort. He had treated him as useful. William acknowledged the humiliation caused when he stopped the signature before the family. He did not apologize for blocking the appointment, but he apologized for allowing Tom to learn of the objection through confrontation instead of direct conversation. The admission mattered. It separated resistance from cruelty, though it could not undo the damage already done. Tom then disclosed through their private exchange what Charles had told him weeks earlier. The position, the king had said, would help ensure Camilla remained protected during any future transition of reign. A transition of reign meant the period when one monarch's rule ended and the next began, often changing household roles, access, and personal security. William finally understood that his father's decision had been driven not only by trust, but by fear of what might happen to his wife after his death. William's judgment did not change. His approach did. He offered Tom a transparent nomination for a narrower charitable advisory position, with no access to household governance or succession planning. Tom agreed to withdraw from the trustee nomination voluntarily, but demanded one condition. Charles must accept publicly that the process had failed, not that William had rejected him personally. The private meeting produced the compromise no palace committee had achieved, yet the king still had to accept it, and the world was already beginning to notice that something had gone wrong. By dawn, the decision that had been guarded behind palace doors was no longer private. The cancelled appointment had reached newsrooms, radio studios, and the gates of Buckingham Palace. Some saw William as the guardian of royal integrity. Others saw an heir humiliating his father and isolating Camilla's family once again. But one image captured the entire argument. A newspaper front page showing Charles with a raised pen beside a stark headline declaring that the signature had been stopped. Charles approved a brief palace statement before breakfast. It confirmed that the proposed household appointment would not proceed, and that future trustee nominations would follow a recorded consultation process. A trustee nomination was the formal method used to place someone in a position of internal responsibility, while recorded consultation meant that every required opinion and vote would be officially documented. Tom Parker Bowles was not blamed. William was not named. Yet the silence around both men made the conflict feel even louder. Camilla watched the morning coverage alone until the king entered. She turned off the television and told him that neutral wording had not protected her son. Commentators were debating Tom's character, motives, and relationship with royal power, despite the statement refusing to accuse him of wrongdoing. Charles answered that naming William would deepen the fracture, but the queen consort heard only another decision made in the name of stability, while her family absorbed the damage. William faced the same coverage at Kensington Palace. The prince had secured the procedure he demanded, but victory brought no relief. Catherine watched him reread the statement again and again, as though one sentence might suddenly reveal whether he had defended the crown or wounded his father beyond repair. The Princess of Wales understood why the vote mattered. Unchecked appointments could shape the future household. She also understood why the cost mattered. A future king could not govern through permanent war with the present one. Outside Buckingham Palace, the dispute became public theater. A small crowd gathered beside the gates as television crews broadcast beneath the headline, "William blocks King's family appointment." Some voices praised the heir for drawing a boundary. Others accused him of beginning his reign before Charles's had ended. Then a constitutional broadcaster delivered the phrase that changed the meaning of the crisis. During a live studio discussion, he called it, "the moment the future reign imposed its first clear boundary upon the present one." A future reign meant the coming period when William would eventually inherit the crown. Suddenly, the blocked signature was no longer treated as a family disagreement. It became a symbol of transition. Charles heard the broadcast and summoned William and Camilla for one final meeting. He did not intend to revive Tom's appointment. He intended to decide how the monarchy would close the wound. The public had already chosen heroes and villains, but inside that room, the royal family would have to decide what mattered more than victory: authority, dignity, or the preservation of trust. There was no celebration when the final decision was made. William had stopped the appointment, but he had wounded his father. Charles had lost the trustee he wanted, but he had also confronted the danger of allowing private loyalty to outrun royal duty. Camilla had defended her son, only to watch him withdraw for the sake of an institution that had never fully embraced him. The victory belonged to no individual. It belonged to the boundary they finally agreed not to cross. Charles waited in his private study with the original appointment document resting on the table. William entered beside Camilla, but the pen that had once threatened to divide them was gone. The king confirmed that Tom Parker Bowles had formally withdrawn his nomination. He then announced that every future royal household trustee appointment would require written consultation, a declared vote, and clear limits on access. A royal household trustee was someone trusted with sensitive internal responsibilities, making those protections essential to the crown's integrity. Camilla turned to William and asked him to say plainly what had remained buried beneath every argument. Had he considered her son dishonest? The prince answered without hesitation. Tom's character had never been the judgment. The process had. He had opposed secret access, not the man being offered it. The queen consort's expression softened, but the pain remained. Her son had been cleared of suspicion only after enduring humiliation. Charles then faced his heir. He told William that being right did not excuse making a father feel powerless. The future king accepted the criticism. He admitted that stopping the signature had wounded both the monarch and the man beneath the crown. But he answered that kingship could not mean protecting loved ones from every institutional boundary. Authority without restraint might feel powerful for one moment, yet it could weaken everything inherited afterward. Charles produced Tom's voluntary withdrawal letter. Through that documented statement, Camilla's son declared that he would not accept a royal position created through family division. He also asked that his name never again be used as a weapon between the king and his heir. Camilla heard dignity in those words. William heard sacrifice. Charles heard the cost of a promise made before consent had been secured. William later kept the pledge he had made during their private meeting. Tom was offered a limited charitable advisory role through an open, documented process. The position allowed him to contribute without entering the governing structure of the royal household or gaining access to succession planning. Charles finally closed the empty appointment folder, ending the dispute with a principle none of them could escape. Personal trust could guide a monarch, but it could never replace collective scrutiny when royal authority was at stake. William did not stop his father from loving Camilla's son. He stopped that love from becoming unchecked royal power. Charles remained king. William remained the heir. Camilla remained a mother defending her child. Yet all three understood the final verdict. The monarchy survives not when power faces no resistance, but when even the sovereign accepts where that power must end. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.